So today we're going to take a look at 100 Thieves versus NRG on Bind, and this game, I think, when you go back and look at it, was a bit of a team comp diff. Not in terms of one team comp is necessarily better than the other, but just in terms of the way that the team sort of played with their team comp and played to the strengths or weaknesses of their team comps. And we'll see that NRG don't really take advantage maybe of their team comp as much as perhaps they should have, whereas 100 Thieves very much played to the strength of their team comp and they seem to know what was going on. Now 100 Thieves are running the old Ascend comp, very normal stuff, very basic comp, and in this first round we're going to see is kind of a quintessential Ascend comp round, whereas NRG have gone for something a bit more experimental. You got the Astra, Breach, Neon, a Fade in there as well, like, a bit weird and a bit out there, but we'll talk about both team comps as we go forward. But let's start with 100 Thieves and the Ascend comp, and we'll start with round 4, which is a very Ascend comp round. So what they do, and what we just saw there obviously, was Asna sending a flash up here early. They're going to get this Viper wall in, which is quite interesting, not one that you often see, which is kind of almost like a kind of elbow pressure wall that you're going to threaten to do that. They're going to get a Sage Slow in here. Asna's about to dog up as well, and then he's going to send another flash down here as well, and that's going to drag in the rotates across because they're sending a lot here towards this B long, or at least it seems like it, but actually the rest of the team are going to group up and go towards A. So you'll see that happen now that we get Asna dogging in there. You see the Sage Slow on the floor as well from Derek. In goes that, and then you might have just seen that Asna was just pulling out another flash there to go. And so you can see that has dragged across this Breach, and almost some on this Neon as well is thinking about leaving as well. And they have Tex pushed up in this position on the chamber, but unfortunately for him, he's going to lose that fight and not even manage to teleport out. And they send in the Showstopper as well. We get a nice little stun and suck there from the side of NRG to try and slow them down. This is kind of a bit crazy that Will manages to kill himself there with his Showstopper. He does manage to do a lot of damage to Psalm as well, but this is kind of very Ascend comp stuff, right? You get up here, you send in this wall, you get this spike down nice and early, and now we see how they will play this post plan. And I just want you to watch how passive they get, right? Look at how far back everyone is from the spike, and this is kind of what Ascend or anyone who is running this comp used to do a lot. Obviously with the old Viper it was even worse. This was you pretty much lost at this point with the old Viper, because those mollies used to last so long and do so much damage. Now it's not as bad, but you've got the Brim molly, and then you've got the Viper orb lineup. It's just lineups galore, right? And so even though they're gonna lose these fights, right, that Asna loses his fight, they get a 1-for-1 trade there. It doesn't matter, right? It just does not matter whatsoever, because this is happening on the spike, and the time is just too low. Hayes dies to the molly lineup, and there we go, right? Round 1 for 100 Thieves. The Viper just laughing. And yeah, that's pretty much how the Ascend comp plays. You get the spike down, you just have lineups galore, you can't defuse the spike at any point, and you win the round. But now let's come to round 7, and 100 Thieves, they did do some interesting things as well though, some not as, basic things. They had some kind of wacky ideas, and it was in particular the way that they used their two controllers, the Viper and the Brim. They didn't really use, I mean they did sometimes, but not as much as perhaps you would expect. They didn't use the kind of default Viper setup here on A, which is normally something that looks like that with the wall here and the orb there. They still did put the orb here a lot of times, but as you can see, we've got this different wall this time. And this wall that they've got up right now, obviously, is kind of just allowing you to maybe sneak and threaten that you could come all the way down here and obviously create shower pressure as well. And so that's kind of what they were going for. And they use this wall quite a lot to a lot of success, right? It's kind of an interesting wall. It creates a lot of pressure for the defenders. Very good wall to use. But as we run this round forward, it's going to be an interesting round with what they do with the Brim as well. And this is something that they did in multiple rounds as well, and it was quite interesting. So they send the dog in. The dog doesn't actually see the Neon there, so that's why I think Asna just sends this flash in so that they know that someone is here. But what we really need to focus on is that they've put a Brim smoke here. Now this is kind of weird, right? Not something that you often see. Now, I don't know necessarily if this is just something that they do against NRG or if this is something that 100 Thieves will keep doing going forward, but it's quite an interesting Brim smoke, right? Because obviously that kind of looks like a defensive smoke, one that's going to stop you from executing from hooker. But the thing is, And I don't know the exact reason why they did the smoke. Initially, I thought it was because they were maybe trying to fake that they were really coming as like a 5 stack up long. Often you will see that if you have like 4 or 5 people coming long, right, and you don't really have anyone in hooker, then an attacking team will smoke this off because they don't know what's in there, right? So with a brim, your smokes might look like that if you're doing a big execute from long. Thing is, as we can see, there isn't anyone there, and this stage is actually going to come back to hooker as well, and this is going to be a full execute from just hooker. So this smoke is like super weird and interesting. Obviously it does allow you to walk up into hooker and see what's there, but it's very, very interesting smoke, and I guess they just must trust and believe in their executes from hooker are going to be really, really good, because this, I mean, 5-man executing from hooker is kind of weird anyway. You know, not many teams will be doing that anyway. But as you can see, we send the Prowler down long, right? Because I think that's because of this smoke. It's like, oh, they must be long. And so when this Prowler doesn't see anyone, I think they are pretty confused here, NRG, as what is going on. The smokes come in, a flash comes out of the smoke, and in goes Will in behind it. And they just must have a lot of trust in Will here that, you know, he's not going to die straight away. And, you know, these guys are going to be able to drop out. But you see, this is actually an Astra smoke, like with the brim smoke, right? The defensive team has smoked the same thing that the attacking team has, which is kind of interesting. They've also walled off the teleporter, so there's no quick flank coming from that as well. And in they come, and they start finding the trades, right? A nice haunt comes up here that Will is able to destroy, and then again we get a 1-for-1 trade there as 100 Thieves coming onto the site. They have a res though, so they're able to get the res off and then get this Viper's Pit down as well. They send in the Sky Ult to check where these last 3 players are. They see that they're all coming from towards the spawn side, and then we can just run this a bit quicker because it is going to be a save from NRG in the end. But some interesting ideas here on the whole. I don't think I've seen anyone do that kind of brim smoke before. I've seen someone use Astra to kind of, you know, recall a smoke so that it kind of allows you to walk into hooker, but then it's, you know, just there for a second. But actually just putting a full smoke there, I don't think I've seen that before. So it's quite an interesting little idea. But actually they're gonna die here. You know, they're up 4-2. They're trying to just chase these guns down, but eventually it doesn't quite go their way and they end up getting mopped up. And now let's come to round number 8. And this one is a pretty wild round, but again shows the kind of power of the double controller on bind, because we're gonna start off with just a monster amount of utility being used to try and clear text out of this. We get a flash, boombot, you know, a Skydog. If we're going to get even more, we're going to stage slow. Som actually manages to get the first kill on Will there already. In comes another Sky Flash, right? Like, eventually, after taking a shot, Tex decides to leave, but it really did take quite a long time. But in come 100 Thieves, and you know, they're already a player down here, so it's not looking great. Again, they have the same Viper wall going across the site that they did before. They suspect that some might be there, but they do manage to get a 1-for-1 there. But now Asner is kind of, you know, a bit alone, but he's going to try and get the spike down behind the stage wall, but then it gets destroyed, so he can't quite do it. So now we're just in a pretty bad position here for 100 Thieves. They are in a 3v4. There's actually a big flank. If you just quickly look at the map, you'll see that Astra's coming behind as well. So they're in a pretty bad position, but the Brim and this Viper Wall are really going to help them win this round, because it's just going to create a lot of confusion, and it's going to allow Bang here to isolate 2 fights. Because Tex is going to go sneaking beyond this wall, maybe getting a bit greedy. Probably shouldn't do this in a 4v3 here, you know, going past a Viper Wall. You're taking the decay. He runs into Bang and dies, and he only has his Headhunter out there as well. So not a great start for him there. And then we're going to get another isolated fight as Bang is just able to sneak all the way through on this Viper Wall, and the Breach here has no idea, so he's able to get another kill. So we end up all of a sudden from a 4v3 into a 2v3. They do still have the flank of the Astra here, but the timing is not going to be right for him because Asna literally turns around the second that he peeks out. And EU is able to get 2, but Stella comes around and trades that final kill as well. And so even from a pretty bad, unwinnable, you know, situation, or a pretty dire situation, this Viper Wall just created a lot of chaos and allowed them basically to turn, you know, a 4v3 into a 2v3 in favor of 100 Thieves, and they managed to win the round. And now let's come to round 10, and this one's going to be quick, but it's going to be pretty wild, because what we're going to see is we're going to get a dog up here from 100 Thieves. They're going to head towards B. You can see we've got 2 players in hooker here. The dog doesn't see anyone, right? And so they get a bit suspicious. So they start to come up to long after they got that space, and they're going to send out the Sky Ult. And the Sky Ult is going to see that basically there is no one on site, and there's 2 people in hookah. So what they decide to do, send in the Brimalt here onto this position here. The Breach, realizing that, you know, this is going to be a pretty bad situation for them, that, you know, they're going to get pincered and whatnot, and maybe get ulted as they have, decides to take the TP and go for his own ult here on this position and try and create some space for his team and try and get some kills traded back. But then in response to that Breach ult, we get the pop of the Raze ult from Will, and Will's going to be able to kill Ethan there. We also get this Viper Molly. Som comes sliding out, dies as well. We get a 1-for-1 trade on the Fade back on the site. And from this position, it's just going to be a save. But a pretty crazy round here in round 10. But now let's take a look at Som's POV of what happened. Because this is what Som saw, right? So he's here in hookah, everything's fine, you know, it's a nice day. In comes the Brimalt, in comes the Breach ult. He tries to get out of the Brimalt, gets hit by the Breach ult back, so his teammates Breach ult back into the Brimalt. He starts taking a ton of damage. He's sliding out into this Viper Molly now as well, and then dies. Not a great day to be Som. You know, I mean, what? Just a crazy little clip there of what a pro game can look like at times. But now let's come to round number 11, and let's talk about NRG's team comp, and something that I found a bit peculiar with some of the things that they didn't really do, because of course they are playing the Neon. And when I first, you know, was watching this game and whatnot, I thought, oh, they're playing Neon, okay. And if you look at 100 Thieves comp, hey, they don't have any, like, you know, trips to, you know, stop a flank, right? So I thought this game was basically just going to be Som flanking, right, running all the way through their spawn, you know, just getting behind them all the time. That would be like a key part of NRG's kind of, you know, defensive strategy, was to just get this Neon flanking all the time. But it just didn't happen, and this is what I mean, playing to your team comp, right, and playing to its strengths and your opponent's weaknesses in this instance as well. It just didn't happen until round 11. They finally decided to do it, and it starts off with this little play here, and they decide to do it, I think, because Som actually has his ult, and this was the time that he used his ult in this defensive half as well. But it starts with this little play here, where they put up this wall, they send out this flash, they're going to send in a Fade Horn outside of, out through the teleport that lands in here. They did this a couple times, but like the couple times that they tried it, 100 Thieves just weren't. It was just like this all the time, where 100 Thieves just weren't here. And every other time, Som just ran back. But this time he decides, because he has his ult, that he is going to go for that fast flank. And obviously they get a lot of info from this fast flank. We actually get a really nice little stun. You might have just seen that. The stun comes through the teleport, the Breach goes with it, gets that kill. Really nice from Ethan. So they do manage to get the first kill, but this is something that they just didn't do before. And if we take a look at the map, you'll see that Som is out here now. His ult has actually ran out, so he only does have a ghost now. But you see that, you know, they all know where they are, right? The full rotation has come in at this point, and Som is going to win this round, because even though 100 Thieves do manage to get the first couple kills, they're actually going to Sage Wall this off as well. We get a Fade ult in there as well. Coming out from NRG as well. Nice little idea where they're going to Fade ult this as well, so that Som now can, you know, come in completely undetected as well. So a really nice idea from NRG, but even though 100 Thieves do manage to get the first kills, they send in that Sage Wall as well. Now Som is just in a position, look, they have no idea that he's there at all. He sends in this really nice stun as well. They do manage to kill him, but, you know, they're completely stunned up now, and so EU gets those final 2 kills. And this was something I think was a bit weird, that it took until round 11 for NRG to do this. You know, we saw obviously that it had quite a high success there, but yeah, it only really happening. You think about some of those other rounds that I was talking about, where, you know, 100 Thieves would Sage Wall this off. You know, when you think about the Neon though, you know, Som really could have done this, you know, very, very fast as well. So he could have been behind them, you know, and they might have thought that they were safe. You know, he could have been there way before they really expected to. And after they walled this, often they were just, you know, completely oblivious, and they were like, oh, we're fine. And also things like this, right? Like, it's about conditioning your opponent, that even if it doesn't work, even if you just threatened it, it might, you know, force them to play differently. It forces them to think about it. But until this round, it just didn't happen. And now let's come to round 15. And this one just kind of is a round that just shows that nothing really was going the way of NRG in this game. Start off with this Fade Haunt here, and then they get Som, you know, being pushed up early, but we see some of the power of the Sky and the Raze playing together here, because we sent out the dog, obviously, and we saw a Boombot out there as well. We're going to get a nade in here as well. Out comes this Sky Flash. There's just a lot to deal with, and so then they swing together as well. They manage to get Som, and they manage to kill Ethan as well. This is their bonus round as well, so they don't even have guns in this round. They only have Spectres against the full buy of NRG. So they managed to get the first 2 kills, right? And then we get a really interesting wall by Derek here, because he's going to wall off Shower, but then be able to just sit on this cubby as well. This is really interesting from him. But Hayes hits a really nice shot here. As you just see, he's just peeking over the wall. Nice little idea, to be honest, from Derek, but a really nice shot coming out from Hayes. And so they start to walk up on A. And to be fair, 100 Thieves don't really know, what's going on at this point. And they have a great idea here, NRG. As you see, the Prowler's coming in towards this Viper. Hayes is going to walk in behind him. He has no idea. It's all going to work really, really well. And so in goes that Prowler. But now we're actually going to get a seize in here as well. And because of that seize, Stella wants to jump out of the way of it. But can't actually get out of the way of it. But then manages to kill Hayes because he turns around at the right time. Whilst that's gone on, Will has picked up a gun from the players they killed before, and EU was back towards short, throwing that seize as we saw, so he's managed to get that kill as well. And now we end up in a 4v1 on the bonus round as well. Not ideal for NRG, and they managed to find that final kill as well. Yeah, nothing really was going that well for them at this point. And now let's come to round 17, and we're going to see the power of the Viper again, this time on the defensive side, because up comes this Viper wall, in comes Som sliding in here, as we got some early pressure from NRG towards Shower with the Fade Haunt, with this Astra Suck as well. But now that Som is vulnerable, well, the Spectre is just gonna melt you down very quickly indeed, and that's exactly what it does. And then in comes EU as well, trying to help out, but there's actually a Raise Nade in there as well. So with the Raise Nade and the Viper Molly, that gets a second kill as well. So we end up very quickly in a 3v5. They're then even going to pop the Viper's ult down towards Shower 100 Thieves as well. And it's just, yeah, it wasn't going the way of NRG, we can say. Good utility use there from 100 Thieves, but yeah, they put down this Viper's Pit, and NRG are kind of stuck in a bit of a tricky situation, you might say, at this point. What they're going to do is they're going to send a stun in here. They kind of, see what's going on a bit, but then out comes the Sky Ult, and that sees them all, so they go retreat a bit again. Now the time is beginning to tick down on them, so they quickly check their flank, and they are going to start to come back here towards short and see what's going on. I mean, again, it's going to just be a bit tragic here, because they send in this Breach Aftershock, and they think that is going to clear this corner, but you can see that Asuna is just sitting there as well, so it doesn't quite clear this corner. He does get flashed, but they just think that this corner's clear, so he's able to get the first one there. Will swings out from the other side, and then Stella's going to come running out his Viper's ult to get that last kill as well, and 100 Thieves take this map 13-4, and I think it was a very good performance by them. I think we saw them, just kind of understand what was going on. This is a fairly, simple comp, I would say, to play on the whole, but they play it very well, right? They play to its strengths very well, and I think that did make a big difference, that they seemed to know what they were doing. They seemed very comfortable with this comp overall, and they had some pretty interesting ideas on top of that as well.